Back now for the news in detail. An Indian military-enforced lockdown in occupied Kashmir has entered its sixth day. Around-the-clock curfew and blanket communications blackout remains in force. The Indian government has deployed 900,000 troops to contain a popular backlash against its illegal change to Kashmir special status. During a brief relaxation of the curfew for Friday prayers, over 10,000 Kashmiris staged a demonstration in Srinagar. Indian occupation forces responded with tear gas and shotgun fire. At least 21 protesters were treated for pellet wounds. Beyond New Delhi's reach, the Kashmiri diaspora staged protests across the world to demand justice.
I was shot in the eye and chest. My friend was also shot. Now I can't see from this eye. There are countless atrocities going on in our town. If this goes on, nothing will remain in this world. Everything will be ruined. We will all die. We will sacrifice our lives till the time we don't get our freedom. This is not me saying this, but the whole Kashmir. What story will I tell? We have been telling it since childhood. They have snatched away all our happiness. Now we will take away from their happiness as well. How many freedom fighters will they kill? Freedom fighters will come out of every house.
I've been here since last night. My son won't be able to see anymore. The light in his eyes has been lost.
Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has reached Beijing, where he met Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi to discuss Kashmir issue. Meanwhile, 45 British MPs have asked UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres to intervene. Now, more on this, Prime Minister Imran Khan has briefed the King of Bahrain, Sheikh Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, about the evolving situation in occupied Kashmir. In a telephone call with the King, Khan said India has violated United Nations resolutions by illegally revoking the occupied region's special status. He said Indian occupied Kashmir is an internationally recognized disputed territory and New Delhi cannot unilaterally change its status. Prime Minister Khan said the international community must play its role to stop India from this irresponsible action in order to maintain peace in the region. The King said Bahrain is monitoring the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir with deep concern and hopes the issue will be resolved through talks. Moving on, Israeli troops have killed 4 Palestinians near the Gaza border. Earlier, Palestine's health ministry said 2 others were injured when Israeli troops fired live ammunition and rubber bullets at the protesters. Palestinian protesters are regularly shot and wounded while staging protests against Israel's blockade of Gaza. More than 350 Palestinian demonstrators have been killed since weekly protests began last year. Monsoon storms and their aftermath have killed 106 people in 4 Indian states over the last 3 days. The southwestern state of Kerala was hit worst, with 42 people dying after 80 landslides hit the state in 2 days. Rescue officials say 24 died in neighboring Karnataka state, while 29 others lost their lives in Maharashtra. Meanwhile, 11 people died in 2 separate incidents of wall and building collapses in the western state of Gujarat. Over 550 Indians have lost their lives since the onset of the monsoon in early July. 18 people have been killed and 14 others missing in a landslide after Typhoon Likima hit eastern China's Zhejiang province. Authorities have issued a high-level orange warning throughout the eastern region. Hundreds of flights and trains have been cancelled and a million people evacuated. Chinese state media says 3 million households have experienced a power blackout. Strong winds have destroyed 200 houses and over 66,000 hectares of farmland. 186 rescue teams, 36,000 firefighters and 8,400 fire engines have been assembled. Now, meanwhile, 22 people have been killed in a landslide triggered by heavy rains in Myanmar's Mon state. An official says a deluge of mud engulfed 16 homes and a monastery in the village of Thai Pyarkone. He says dozens of others were injured in the incident. Floods have also forced tens of thousands of people to flee their homes across the country. Moving on, at least 57 people have been killed after an overturned fuel tanker exploded in Tanzania. Local media reports say 65 others were injured in the incident. Officials say the victims died while siphoning fuel from the tanker some 200 kilometers west of Dar es Salaam. An eyewitness says many people who were not stealing fuel also died. Moving on, Seoul claims North Korea has fired 2 more missiles into the sea off its east coast. The latest test followed joint military exercises between the United States and South Korean forces. These are North Korea's 5th such missile test in less than 3 weeks. South Korea's defense ministry claims the missiles resembled short-range ballistic missiles launched by the North in late July. The ministry says such a test breaches 11 UN Security Council resolutions. Earlier, US President Donald Trump said he had received a beautiful letter from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump said Kim is unhappy with the current US-South Korea joint military exercises. Meanwhile, Russia has warned the US not to deploy long-range weapons around the world following its unilateral withdrawal from a Cold War missile pact. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova says the United States has long planned to withdraw from the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. She says Russia will plan its military development to respond to any threat posed by US military expansion. Zakharova says Russia will unilaterally abide by its obligations under the INF Treaty unless the US deploys missiles in other countries. Meanwhile, Iran has unveiled a new missile defense system. Falak is a locally upgraded system with a range of 400 kilometers. Iranian media says the system has high capabilities and can detect all types of drones, cruise and ballistic missiles. The announcement comes at a time of rising tensions between Iran and the United States. Now, Iran says any maritime presence in the Gulf from outside the region will be a source of insecurity. That Tehran warned against the presence of Israel in a planned collision to patrol the Strait of Hormuz. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says the Persian Gulf is a vital lifeline and national security priority for Iran. He says Tehran will not hesitate to safeguard its security against any aggression. Earlier, Britain announced it will join the force amid rising tensions with Iran over seizure of oil tankers. Meanwhile, Libya's internationally recognized government has accepted the United Nations proposal for a ceasefire during Eid al-Adha holidays. The government has declared a ban on ground clashes and airstrikes on humanitarian grounds. Beginning today, the ceasefire will remain in force until August 13th. The Tripoli administration says the United Nations mission in Libya will monitor the truce for violations. There was no immediate comment from Khalifa Haftar's eastern forces. Meanwhile, UN envoy Ghassan Salami has proposed an international conference to end the war in Libya. The United Nations says it is concerned at the violent clashes in the Yemeni port city of Aden. 8 people were killed in clashes between southern separatists and government forces in the area. In a statement, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged an end to hostilities. Guterres called on both sides to start dialogue to solve their dispute. Medics say 12 others were wounded in fighting near the presidential palace. Russia hopes an agreement can be finalized under UN supervision on forming Syria's new constitutional committee. Russia's ambassador to the UN, Gennady Gatilov, says the panel may be convened in Geneva next month. Gatilov expects the UN representative will announce the agreement with Syria on setting up the constitutional committee. The formation of panel is key to political reforms and elections in war-torn Syria. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, US President Donald Trump says the views of the pro-gun rights NRA on gun control should be respected. Trump says leaders of the House of Representatives and Senate are discussing expanded background checks for gun sales. He says guns should not be placed in the hands of mentally ill or deranged people.
You have to remember, and I've said it, it's a big mental illness problem. And the gun doesn't pull the trigger. A sick mind pulls the trigger. So we want to take that out of the equation.
The US president's remarks come after 31 people were shot dead in Texas and Ohio last weekend. Now moving on to Britain, where British Minister Michael Gove says the UK could become a force for free trade globally once it leaves the European Union. His statement follows Prime Minister Boris Johnson's letter to civil servants asking them to prioritise preparations for leaving the bloc without a deal.
The British minister responsible for planning for a no-deal Brexit is in Ireland for negotiations over the Irish backstop. He said Brexit is still doable, but the Irish backstop must go. The Irish border backstop plan is the most intractable in the Brexit process so far. Britain believes the plan will prevent the country from striking its own trade deals with two islands.
We will have Brexit on October the 31st. The Prime Minister has been absolutely clear. That is the position and law, that we have to leave the European Union, and that is the date that's been agreed between the EU 27 and the UK.
The UK wants the EU to compromise on the deal, but the EU is adamant that the deal it made with Johnson's predecessor, Theresa May, final.
I'm here in order to make sure that across government we have the most granular grasp of all the issues that will affect the future prosperity, the future security of all the people in the United Kingdom and, of course, our neighbours in the Irish Republic and in the rest of the European Union.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said the UK will leave the EU as scheduled, with or without a deal. His do-or-die promise of leaving the EU could be chaotic and many consider it economically disastrous.
It's our due.
Indonesia, at least 69 people have thrown their hat into the ring as the country prepares for the presidential elections next month. Indonesian Prime Minister Yusuf Shahid is among them. The Election Commission will announce the names of eligible candidates on August 31st. Originally slated for November, the elections were rescheduled after the death of President Baji Qaid on July 25th. In Kyrgyzstan, former President Almazbek Atambayev has been charged with corruption over his alleged role in the release of a convicted criminal. Police had to battle protesters to arrest him. Atambayev surrendered to police during the second raid at his home outside the capital, Bishkek. His supporters repulsed the first raid in clashes with special forces, leaving one dead and dozens injured. In June, Kyrgyzstan's parliament stripped Atambayev of immunity and his official status as a former president. More than 2 million Muslims have gathered in the holy city of Mecca for one of the most important rituals of Islam. Al-Sheikh Mohammed bin Hassan has delivered sermon in the Nimra Mosque at Arafat.
والنعمة لك الملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم.
Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and Muslims must perform it at least once in their lives if they can afford to. The pilgrimage commemorates the sacrifices of Prophet Abraham, his wife Hagar, and their son, the Prophet Ismail. The pilgrims undertake religious rites that have remained unchanged since the founding of Islam 14 centuries ago. It is performed in 7 steps, starting from the 8th day of the lunar month of Dhul-Hajj. The ritual is performed in unison to create harmony and affection.
والنعمة لك الملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم.
Now, Chinese telecoms giant Huawei has launched its own operating system, Harmony, offsetting the threat of losing access to Google's Android system. Huawei says the new system will be usable in different devices ranging from smartphones to speakers and sensors. Chief Executive Richard Yu says the Harmony operating system would initially be installed in smart screen products. He says Harmony will be ready to use in China by the end of this year. It will be launched internationally in mid-2020. Over the next 3 years, Harmony will be available in a wide range of devices, including wearables and car head units. An unorthodox Indian music star has won hearts online with her big teeth, lustrous white coat, 4 legs and melodic braying at mealtime. India's Emily, a donkey otherwise used to transfer goods, has quickly become an internet sensation. Emily, a donkey living at an animal shelter in the Indian city of Pune, became an internet sensation after a clip of her singing went viral. Staff at the center, where cats, dogs, cows and even large buffaloes are cared for, were playing with Emily when she started crooning. They recorded a video of Emily showing off her vocal range and uploaded it on their social media page, where it became an instant hit.
I think it started because she liked to beg for treats. So the moment like she sees a treat bucket or she sees that it's time for food, she starts singing, and I think it's kind of her way of saying that I should get fed first.
But this building star has a long way to go now. Now let's have a look at the weather updates across the world. With the weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For more news and updates, keep watching Indus News.